Feng Shui means wind and water. Now, I found that the easiest way to think about Feng Shui is likening it to, say, the art of weather forecasting in a particular region. So there's different ways that you can go about it. One comes from the folk wisdom, from the generations of people that have lived in a particular area. They can tell you what the patterns are, what the currents are, what you can expect, and what some of the unusual circumstances are that you need to watch out for. Then there's the element that comes from observing closely across various seasons and different times of day. So it's like really watching what's going on around you and learning for yourself and studying it. But then there's also the aspect that comes from taking measurements and doing calculations. Say, for instance, in weather, you could be looking at things like moisture in the air, or even something more esoteric like sunspot activity. And that there'll be environmental factors that help to create microclimates that are different to a particular area rather than the area around it. So things like hills and water features, the level of foliage, for instance, that encourage certain localized climatic conditions that are unusual to a particular spot in that region. Sometimes these are taken into account when designing a house or dwelling, but most often homes and neighborhoods are simply planned on paper for the most cost-efficient implementation and have very little regard for the effects of the environment of that dwelling on that dwelling. So things like landscape and orientation to catch the breezes, they're often not captured when planning on paper. So let's have a quick overview of the 3 Qis or the 3 energies. What are they? How do they affect us in our daily lives? All right, we are conscious beings with free will living in a physical world. So right there in that statement, the 3 Qis are evident. First is the fact that we are flesh and blood beings, and that speaks to the earth Qi or the earth energy, like the world of minerals, matter, or what we call physical reality. It's the world that your physical being moves through and interacts with. The physical world influences you just as much, if not more, than you influence it. The next aspect is the fact that we're alive, which is, if you like, by the grace of God. And this is heaven Qi. This is the realm of meaning and philosophy, those big picture questions like, why am I here? What's my purpose? And so on. In this realm, there are no objective, concrete answers. There is nothing that is scientifically measurable. And then there's the aspect of free will, which is the human Qi element. Human Qi is that which is under your direct control and how you choose to live your life. It covers a lot of daily experiences, many of which seem trivial at first glance, but which are pivotal to the quality of your life. Now, in Feng Shui, most of the schools come from either the Earth Qi level or the Heaven Qi level. The goal of Feng Shui is to have you, the human, flow most smoothly through the currents of life, be they environmental or related to your destiny. Remember, this system is ancient and secretive, and I want to say here that it's not limited only to the Far East. There are similar systems all around the world, but I want to make some points here. Point 1. Everyday people in ancient days had very limited personal choice about their life, so they did what they could do to make their limited circumstances as comfortable as possible. And it's at this level where the Earth Qi school of Feng Shui dominates. It works with the environment, the arrangement of landscape features, the bagua, and familiar tools such as wind chimes and aquariums. The second point is that the elite also had limited life choices in ancient times. They also were not free to do as they pleased, but their realm wasn't so much landscape focused as it was for the farmers and the villagers. The elite have much more control over their environment. So if they needed a mountain to be in a certain direction, they could certainly go build a mountain to be where it needed to be. But the elite, they move in realms of power and influence. So they look to a different set of tools to help them leverage their destiny. Enter the Feng Shui masters of the Heaven Qi schools. These were the high-level and very secretive schools of navigating your way through the heavenly flows of energy. And even heavenly flows of energy have rhythms, and they wanted to navigate these to maximum personal advantage. And you certainly didn't want your opposition getting hold of this wisdom either. So that's how things became very secret and closed. And this game actually goes on all over the world. And you better believe that the elite utilize highly secretive, esoteric practices like astrology and so on to help them plan their moves. The third point that I want to make is where Feng Shui schools don't really focus on, and that's the area of human qi. Historically and culturally, there was no point to focus on this. However, the theories that drive Feng Shui can also be found in traditional Chinese medicine, Tai Chi, Qigong, and so on. So there are different disciplines that utilized this body of knowledge in order to maximize human qi. But even there, they didn't go into free will. Now, it's important to realize that there was never, in recorded history, where the individual was as independent as they are today. And you notice this particularly in the Western influenced cultures. We are learning to break free of our social and cultural backgrounds and choose our own paths through life. People are breaking free of traditional tribes and exploring new models of living and thinking and earning a living. We live in a time of upheaval and disruption, and personally, I see this as a time of amazing possibilities for humanity. We are in a phase change, like when ice turns to water and then to steam and then to vapor. We are seeing more and more people wanting personal autonomy and agency over their own lives because we are in a collective transition to a new level. And as with all evolution, there are the pioneers, the renegades, the rebels, the misfits, and the thought leaders. They're all my favorite kinds of people. And it's quite probable that if you're here in this course, that you're one of those kinds of people. So I wanted to create a course that empowers you by helping you to get an easy overview of the energies that you're navigating at all levels. Because as someone who is living in these times, you have so much more control over your circumstances and your destiny than ever before. But you need to know what you're dealing with, what's around you. There are energetic currents around you at the physical and the cosmic levels that can either support you or hinder you. It's wise to be aware of the earth and heaven qis and know how they work so that you can navigate them with skill and confidence, regardless of what they are. Traditionally, Feng Shui has never given much focus to human qi because historically there wasn't that much that humans could do to take charge over their own lives. And that's why I created this course, to allow you to be free of the fear of bad Feng Shui and know that you can overcome it with simple actions. Even though some of the topics that we're going to be covering may seem obvious and maybe even trivial, they are pivotal and deceptively powerful, so don't underestimate them. So here's a quick overview of what you will learn as we cover these three energies. With the Earth Chi, what you're looking for is threats to your physical well-being and to your health. Everyone agrees that your health is the cornerstone of your personal power. With Heaven Chi, the biggest threat is not realizing your magnificence and letting yourself feel small and insignificant and at the mercy of life. So that's what we'll be looking for. And at the Human Chi level, your biggest threat will be that you lack the courage to go for your vision, or you lack the conviction in your purpose or your reason for being here. So as we cover all of the three Qis, look out for all those elements. Okay, let's move on. Your home reflects who you are on the inside. Your home is your third skin. Your first skin is the one on the surface of your body. Your second skin is how you cover yourself to present yourself to the world. Your third skin is your home, how you project yourself, your tastes, your values, your priorities out into the world around you that you control. So in the spaces that you control, so your home, your office, your cubicle, okay, so your bedroom, almost certainly your bedroom. And for somebody else to come into your space, it can feel a little bit, well, they're coming into your private areas. Now, why does your space feel kind of private? Because you're reflecting who you are. Think of when you go visit somebody in their house. You look around and you get impressions. You make assumptions. You make judgments, okay? Perhaps about their taste, about their housekeeping skills, but you make judgments. And it's the same when somebody comes to your house. So there's that sense of personal, because we subconsciously, if not consciously, understand that our environment is us. And that's the premise that I'm going to go into this course with. And yes, I have studied Feng Shui to great depth over quite a number of decades, fairly high level stuff, but I'm not going to be applying very much Feng Shui at this stage. When people talk about Feng Shui, they have a particular mindset, or they have a particular understanding, that it's about fountains, it's about mirrors and little statues that, you put over here and in that corner, or even, worse, that you've got to rearrange your bedroom entirely and maybe even break down a wall or two, and remodel your home. And that can be scary, but totally unnecessary. When I was studying Feng Shui, I had also previously studied psychology, and I was very aware of that interface between environment and the individual. I also did a lot of extra reading about how the environment influences you. Like, there's a lot of Western literature available about color psychology, for instance, or about how in hospitals that patients who are able to look at natural scenery recover much faster than patients who only see interiors. So there's all this extra awareness, extra study, but it didn't seem to be cohesive. So I created a discipline more for myself that I could hang it on to, that I called place psychology. It incorporated some Feng Shui, because there is a lot of, well, I would say almost common sense methods in Feng Shui, but I also incorporate, say, like success psychology. Okay, when you are determined about achieving a goal or achieving a certain outcome, how your greater space helps you or hinders you in doing that. That's the interface that I am especially excited by. And that is what we're going to be talking about in this course. So stay tuned, and I will see you in the next lecture. A number of years ago, there used to be a reality TV show that I think featured Donald Trump, and it was called You're Fired. There was a very particular episode that created some waves, because one woman, she quit. She didn't wait to be fired. She just came forward and said, I quit. And the reason was this. In the beginning, all the contestants, they were firstly divided into two groups, and they had some playoffs in the business context, I would expect. And the losing group would have to live in a tent city until they changed their fortunes. But the winning group was put up in a 5-star hotel. And this woman, the one who quit, she was from the tent city group. And she was saying that once they were in that environment, they were kind of trapped there. They never could muster up that mindset, that winning mindset that would override or defeat the mindset of those who lived in the lap of luxury. Okay, so she was just railing against the power of the environment and feeling victimized, feeling trapped in a no-win situation based purely on the power of the environment. Now, in real life, okay, things are always on the move. Things are always flowing. Circumstances can change. In this particular TV show, it was like that was a fixed environment. Okay, so there could be no outside intervention. There could be no rescue. There could be no, walking away from it and taking charge of your own life. It was kind of like a fishbowl environment. So it was a little bit artificial. But yes, this woman, she understood that their chances of winning were slim to none. So she wasn't going to play the game anymore. And I found that extremely interesting simply for the validation that your environment can either help or hinder your determination, your willpower, even your vision, even your capacity to imagine differently. So that's one example. That was rather a radical example of how your environment actually influences you. Now, very few of you who are listening, who are watching, will be at the extreme end of either, living in the lap of luxury or in a permanent tent city kind of environment. You'll be in between, sometimes one, sometimes the other. Be aware your environment has incredible influence over how you think, how you perceive. So yes, you initially create it, but then it creates you. It's a two-way conversation. I'll see you in the next video. Now in this section, we're going to be talking about Earth Chi. Earth Chi is how the environment affects you, and some things you'll be able to control, some things you won't be able to control. You just kind of need to reset your relationship to it if it's something that you have to bear for a while. So let's dive right in. Okay, so let's look at some of the ways that we can make the Earth Chi in your life stronger. This will work even when you are in desperate or limited circumstances, because there will be some things that you just have no control over in your house and in the Feng Shui of your dwelling. Okay, so like the hills could be in the wrong place, the energy flow of the land or your front door is just all wrong. But hey, it's still a house, right? You chose it for better or worse, and it is a little bit like a marriage. You and your home will be sharing a journey together, and who knows for how long. For some people, that will be for a number of years, and for others, it'll only be for a short time. One thing I'm very confident about, you can get on with anyone or anything that you're determined to get on with. And this means that you can also thrive in any property that you're determined to thrive in. All relationships have their ups and downs and their little dramas that flare up into major issues, but it's how you handle them. It's how you grow from those experiences that will ultimately determine how successful your life's journey has been and how successful it has felt for you. So here are some tips for thriving at the Earth Chi level. The goal is to be physically healthy and keep the currents strong and the resistance low. So the first way is keeping your place clean. Have you ever paid attention to what your place feels like after you've had a thorough spring clean? It feels great, yeah? So no matter how awful your physical environment is, you can control the cleanliness. You will make a strong difference to the energy of your space with just a really good, focused cleaning. It's simply that the energy of thriving, which is creative, cohesive, and moving forward, is the total opposite to the energy of decay and disorganization and dysfunction. It's the same with your home. When things are all over the place and in disrepair, it's really hard to feel positive and motivated in such an environment. Now, I'm not talking about being occasionally messy, but more towards being like at the squalid end. Now, if you come from a childhood of growing up, say, in public housing, you'll be aware of the powerful gravitational force that keeps pulling residents back to that environment. It takes a tremendous amount of determination and outside support to break free from the forces of the fear, the helplessness, and the apathy that tend to abound in such locations. You see, your own vibes are actually brought down when you place yourself in an unclean environment. Have you noticed that you just can't concentrate on the task you're trying to accomplish when there is grot and grime all around you? Ask any university students who are studying for their exams. Suddenly all the grime takes major priority. And it does hold some water. It's not just an avoidance tactic. Now, if your home, as I've said before, is actually considered to be your third skin, you can make a strong correlation between someone's personal grooming standards and the cleanliness of their home. Caring about one will always reflect in the other. It's really hard to be creative when you're surrounded by guilty reminders of your bad housekeeping. You suddenly become very self or home conscious. Women tend to be more susceptible to this than men. When a guy's home is a mess, he will still invite you around. But if a woman's home is a mess, she will avoid inviting you in. So imagine the visitor to be success. What more of a case do you need? Okay, well, what can you do about it? Keep everything clean and organized. And yep, it takes a bit of effort and time, and sometimes it's more than what busy people have. So you may need to apply some of your creative ingenuity to this situation. If you're chasing a dream, take extra care of your physical self. Don't let your personal hygiene standards slip. Take extra pride in your appearance and consider it a rehearsal for when your dreams become your reality. For some of you, this is the only part you'll be able to control. Maybe your control extends to your bedroom. The message is control what you can. Keep your sanctuary sacred. Now this means keep it free from dust and cobwebs, and especially look in the corners, the high ones as well as the low ones. Keep it uncluttered. Don't put it down, put it away. Clutter is a big obstacle to success. Now, I'm not talking about being a neatness freak. Some kind of disorder seems to be actually good for a creative process, but I'm talking about hoarding stuff that is well beyond its usefulness. And we'll talk about this in another time. Make sure that all your items in your place, in your sanctuary, are in good working order. If there's a rip in the pillow or a clock needs a new battery, deal with it. Make sure it's free from spills and messes. Get in the habit of cleaning as you go. And make sure that the air that you're breathing in this space is not stagnant. Open the windows if you can, and let the fresh air just come into this space. Try to leave the windows open for at least half an hour just to dispel all the carbon dioxide that's collected. And please, don't use the plug-in air fresheners. They're actually air poisoners. So they send through chemicals into your breathing space that actually numb the ability of your nose to smell. So choose flowers or maybe essential oils if you want to make a nice smell to your space. And keep it free from mold. And mold is a very, very yin kind of energy. And it usually occurs in very yin places like dark and damp and unventilated places. Apparently 2 teaspoons of tea tree oil mixed with a couple of cups of water is a natural mold killer. If it sounds too much for you to do by yourself, then make sure you get help or at least get a system going. My personal preference is to get a cleaner, but make sure they avoid using harsh chemical cleaners in your place. So I'm going to add. So the second way to strengthen your earth chi in your home is to declutter. Now, most Feng Shui consultants would probably agree that the number one problem in most homes that we go to is simply that people have too much stuff. If there's no other thing that you can do to improve the energy of your home, then start here. Even if there are other things you can do, still start here. Because I guarantee you that nothing, but nothing, will help kickstart your life in a revitalizing way than by clearing out every single thing that no longer serves you. I put cleaning on the list first because everybody should be able to manage that with relative ease. And if you are up to decluttering first, do it and then clean. Be careful not to bite off more than you can chew so that you end up being in one big mess over a number of days. You really don't want that. So declutter and clean maybe in stages. Now, I like to look at where words come from. And so the word clutter is related to the word clot, as in blood clot, meaning to coagulate. Clutter coagulates energy. And by decluttering, you can get the energy to flow again. You know, there are many people who have lost everything in a natural disaster, and they have actually welcomed a fresh start. So maybe look around your belongings and think about what you would want to rescue in an emergency event and what you couldn't care less about. Begin somewhere, because quite simply, clutter blocks energy. New energy cannot come in if there is no room for it in your house. I remember a few years after I had finished university, I had held on to all my textbooks and displayed them on my bookshelves, and I took them thousands of kilometers when I moved from one place to another place across the country. And I gotta say, they looked pretty impressive and suitably intimidating to visitors, you know, showed off how smart I was. But after I cleaned them out, it was only a matter of weeks before I felt, and it almost felt like a physical push into a new area of expertise, which for me was Feng Shui. And I often joke that I didn't choose Feng Shui, but rather it chose me, because I remember the strong pull in my solar plexus area whenever I picked up a Feng Shui book. And so within 12 months, my bookshelf was full again. But the books, this time, they were based on my new passion. And I really believe that it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't cleaned out the old books to make way for the new ones. So maybe start with your purse or your handbag or your briefcase. Start with your car. Move on to your wardrobe, and even go in and do the underwear and the accessories and your bags and shoes. Oh, and don't forget the jewelry. Every area of your home is important to declutter. But start with the places that you spend the most time in, and then the most public places of your home, such as your living room or where you bring in guests. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because you don't really need it explained to you. You just actually need to do it. But if you want to research it first, there's many good guides that you can find online about clutter clearing. The faster you clear your house of clutter, the faster you will see your life transform and move forward. And again, this is magic. It's amazing what happens when you clear out old stagnant energy. So what are the effects of clutter? Pragmatically, you're going to waste a lot of time and effort looking for things. You also risk being overwhelmed with chaos and quantity of stuff. There's informational clutter as well as stuff clutter. And it's going to create stress, okay? And that stress blocks your creative energy. It also stops new things coming in, like new ideas and new information, new perspectives. There's also more effort required, and it's more expensive to keep clean and to store. Think of all the storage units that people hire just to store stuff that they probably will never access again. We live in a world surrounded by material possessions, not to mention information overload. How we organize ourselves at home and at work can have a huge impact on the flowingness of our lives. There's a Feng Shui author, Lee Wydra, who basically wrote a very good book on clutter, and she says that where there is clutter, there are roadblocks. And she goes on to say how our clutter can be metaphors regarding various life areas. So for instance, if you have clutter at the entrance of your home, Nancy Lee says that this can represent fear of relationships. Clutter inside a closet represents an unwillingness to examine emotions. In the kitchen, clutter can represent resentment or being overwhelmed by taking care of others. Next to a bed, it means possibly a desire for change or to get out, like an escape. On a desk, clutter represents frustration or fear of letting go of control. Under a piece of furniture, it represents the importance of appearances. Under the house, it represents procrastination. Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, huh? In storage areas, it represents living in the past. In a garage, it represents inability to actualize, to make things happen. Filing cabinets represent resentment of your job situation. And just clutter all over represents anger and self-hatred. So, do any of these resonate with you or with someone you know? I know that some of those struck home for me. So, yeah, send me a message. Let me know what you discovered or what you feel about these correlations. Think of when you arrive home from work in the afternoon to a home that is left untidied. Are you glad to be home? Probably not, because you're likely to be feeling guilty about all those unfinished chores and possibly not getting the help that you want. But if you arrive home to a tidy and ordered home, you'll be able to kick your shoes off and then truly relax. The same principle applies to your office area or your workspace every morning. How does it feel when you arrive? Are you overwhelmed before you even start? Now, the third way of strengthening the earth chi of your dwelling is to be aware of what happened to the last residents and maybe the ones before that. So do a bit of detective work and find out why the previous residents left. Because Feng Shui leaves clues, and one important clue is whatever happened to the previous occupants. Because what happened to them could also happen to you. So for instance, you probably know of some places that have been on the real estate market again and again and again, and no one seems to really stay in there for more than, say, a couple of years. And often what happens to people in that situation is they sell because their relationships break down, or there are financial problems. People go broke. So there are places where there are very definite themes like that. So if you're living in such a place, forewarned is forearmed. But if the previous residents went on to bigger and better things, that they left because they upgraded to a better house, or they got a promotion that they left the location to pursue, well, then that generally bodes well for you as well. So it's not a guarantee of good fortune, but at least you'll know that the Feng Shui wasn't that bad as to squash all opportunity for improvements. Now, a quick word about death. If someone died in your residence, find out, if you can, what the circumstances were. A natural death is okay because, that's part of life. But a violent death will leave energetic reverberations in the walls, within the surroundings, and it will almost certainly impact on you. If the death is unsolved, be especially alert, because if this place has been targeted before, the killer could still be on the loose, or the spirit of the deceased may be restless, and that can create very unnerving experiences for you. So if you absolutely have to continue living there, make sure you take care to be physically safe by taking appropriate precautions. You may also want to call in a space clearer who will go through your home and communicate with any lingering spirits, and this will also clean up any toxic energies. Once the space clearers leave, it's important that you don't let the energies get stale again, as it's yin energies that will draw the yinness of death energy back. So keep the energies quite yang in your place, and that means like bright lights, moderately loud and cheerful music, and make sure to get lots of fresh air and sunshine inside. Keep it clean and uncluttered. Let's talk about mold. Mold needs very yin places to grow, and yin areas are dark, damp areas. The usual culprits are the bathrooms, laundries and kitchen, and along your home's plumbing and natural drainage pathways. Dark cupboards in these areas are particularly susceptible. So remember, you need darkness and dampness to create an environment that mold loves to grow in. So it can also come up through damp flooring, maybe like carpet underlays. So it's coming from the damp soil underneath the house, and as it's evaporating, it's drawn upwards, so it can come up through the floorboards and get trapped in the underlay. So when the soil beneath the property is damp, moisture can then affect the floors of the property. Also watch for mold growing on any organic textures, such as clothing, which are being stored in your cupboard. So maybe they weren't dried properly. Maybe you were walking in the rain, or you put them away too quickly after laundering. Also, if you live in humid climates, mold can be a real problem there as well. Another thing you should be checking very carefully is your air conditioning systems. So during hot, humid months, they can get really slimy inside, which means that mold spores can easily be breathed in, and many health problems actually begin with mold in your home. And you can often smell a hint of mold when you turn on air conditioning that hasn't been cleaned for a while. An interim cure, or an interim, management system until you get it properly looked at and cleaned, is to maybe spray it with some tea tree spray or some clove oil that's been added to some water. So please make sure you get it professionally cleaned as soon as you can. You can get those dehumidifier sachets like cat litter. Chalk also works, so you might want to keep some moisture drawers, that's a really hard word to say, items that draw out moisture. Keep some in your cupboard or wardrobes. Okay. All right, let's talk about electromagnetic frequencies in your Earth Chi analysis. Electromagnetic frequencies, or EMF, they're not part of traditional Feng Shui repertoire. Obviously, they didn't have those to deal with in past centuries, but it's certainly part of modern considerations as to what constitutes a healthy house and strong Earth Chi, because electrical currents, they emit a field. Electrical appliances have their own frequencies that are out of sync with our own human frequencies. So it was bad enough that our homes were filled with electrical appliances that emitted these electromagnetic frequencies when they were turned on, but now most of us don't even turn them off. They sit on standby or sleep mode. Even worse now is all the wireless stuff in our home. Wireless and Bluetooth. Looking at things like computers and all the peripherals, cell phones, or in Australia we call them mobile phones, entertainment systems, and it's probably even going to be like your smart appliances as well. And it does affect your Earth Chi. You are in that energetic soup, and this is one of the main toxic influences. Already a lot of people are reporting fuzzy thinking and physical symptoms whenever they're around Wi-Fi equipment. So get in the habit of turning off appliances when you're not using them. Turn off the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections when you're not actively transmitting anything. And particularly look at your phones and your tablets. It's easy to just leave them on endlessly. Also get into the habit of getting grounded or earthing yourself. When we are around all this electronic gear, our body holds the charge from the radiation that they're giving off, and we compound the problem by living in synthetic environments, wearing synthetic footwear and clothing. But if we go outside and stand on grass and bare ground, we could discharge this energy directly into the ground. And that's the same principle as the earthing power outlets. But unfortunately, very few of us walk barefoot on the earth anymore. However, there's new products coming on the market that help to provide this earthing connection. It has an earthing plug, and you put that into your power socket, and it carries the charge from you down through the earthing plug and directly into the earth. Make sure in your sleeping area, this is really, really important. Make sure in your sleeping area you minimize any Wi-Fi signals, any Bluetooth signals. Okay, if you're in the habit of taking your iPad or your cell phone, mobile phone, into your bedroom with you, naughty, don't do it. At least turn it off or put it on airplane mode. And make sure you're not sleeping between the sending and receiving signals from your Wi-Fi source or your Bluetooth source to your Bluetooth receiver or your Wi-Fi receiver. Sometimes there are things in our environment, in our place, that serve a function, but they don't look very nice. Maybe we're not in a position to upgrade, or maybe it's even kind of stuck on the wall, comes with the place. If we're renting, it kind of comes with the territory and we can't do anything about it. But doesn't mean that we have to keep looking at that ugliness day in and day out. So if you have something like that, hide it or disguise it. Maybe use screens or put some nice fabric over something that is on the floor. Put some nice fabric over it if it's bulky and boxy, and pop a vase of flowers on the top. Same with old couches and sitting chairs that might be mismatched or might be a little bit tired but might still be really comfortable. Indoor plants can be used to kind of hide problem areas. Use lace curtains to let in light but kind of diffuse an ugly view. You can also get like removable window frosting vinyl that does the same function if you don't like lace curtains. Also rearrange furniture to minimize having to look at unattractive areas. And at night, use lamps. I love lamps with a warm bulb. And that sort of instantly creates a nice atmosphere to any room and doesn't put harsh light on any ugly features. So yes, use drapery, use lighting, use screens. This is a place for you to get quite creative on. Okay, just be resourceful. If there's something you don't like, how can you disguise it? How can you minimize it until you're in a position to deal with it once and for all, to clear it out of your life once and for all? Whenever I would go to a business consultation, Feng Shui for business, people were always very surprised that I would ask about their bedroom. But your bedroom is actually probably the most critical place where the success and well-being of your business and your journey through life is shaped and influenced. It doesn't follow logically until you realize that your bedroom is where you recharge your battery, both physically and psychically. Okay, if you're not getting a good night's sleep on a regular basis, then that's going to be affecting your daily performance. When we're awake, we are at our most yang, where most our energy is kind of outward pushing and us dealing with the world. But when we're asleep, we are at our most yin. We are really defenseless against any influences around us that might impinge on us energetically. When we are in our yin state, our energy has retreated inside us. Our awareness is no longer on the surface. So your yin energy needs protection from being pulled into even further yin states, like water when it finds its own balance. You want to have a nourishing yin state. Now, okay, probably the easiest way to think about it is when you're asleep, you are 2/3 yin and 1/3 yang. The yang is that your heart is still beating, you're still breathing, your blood is still flowing. Okay, so that's life. So you do have, a foot in the living world, even though your consciousness and your alertness is not evident in the traditional way or in the daily way. So sleeping state is 2/3 yin, 1/3 yang. Waking state is 2/3 yang, 1/3 yin. Okay, so the yin of the waking state is the gentle movement through life, the in-breath, the sitting down, the relaxing, the taking time out to just, if you want to do meditation or yoga, so it's that kind of soft awareness of life rather than the push, push, push. So getting back to the sleep state, you don't want that 2/3 yin getting any larger by having imbalances around you, pulling that yin into further yinness. Sometimes you catch yourself saying phrases that just sound really strange but seem to make sense in the context. All right, so because if your yin gets larger, if your proportion of yin gets larger than 2/3, then you're going to be pulled into sickness. Your hold on life is going to get more and more tenuous. You don't want that. All right, good sleep underpins good health, so make sure that your bedroom is nourishing for you. This is why you don't want a messy bedroom or a chaotic bedroom, because mess and chaos are incredibly yin. And make sure there's good ventilation in your bedroom. So at least in the morning, if you have windows that you can open, let in fresh air and let the stale air move out. You've been breathing out carbon dioxide for almost 8 hours, and double that amount if someone else is sleeping in that room with you. And many modern bedroom faults include having large mirrors on the wardrobes as the wardrobe doors. You never want to be able to see yourself in a mirror from when you're lying in bed, okay? Because that is it's not the real world. It's like I guess you could call it like a virtual reality. It's there, but it's not there, but you think it's there. So yes, if you can do something about that, that would be great. If you can't do something about it, maybe, I love screens. Okay, they're very handy. So put a screen between the mirror and where you see yourself when you're lying down. I've also seen people put curtains, lace curtains, in front of them, in front of the mirrors. If there's nothing that they can do about it, it at least diffuses and minimizes the pull of that yin world. And talking about mirrors, there's a lot of ancient people in the world who don't like mirrors. Mirrors are magical. Okay, mirrors have a magic. Scrying Alice through the looking glass. It's a portal. A mirror is a portal. And while you are in your very yin state, you do not want to have portals that you may get unwittingly pulled through. And another common bedroom fault is having too many electric appliances or too much electronic equipment in the room, particularly, if everybody has their television and they have their computers and they have their play boxes, PlayStations, iPods, music, Bluetooth speakers. Okay, it can get a real mess, a real electronic mess energetically in bedrooms. Again, like in the last topic, get in the habit of turning off everything. If you can. If you can't get it out of your bedroom, turn it off, put it on airplane mode while your consciousness is not there to fight off and to hold its place with determination. You are very vulnerable when you're asleep and you're in this zigzag of bouncing electronic energy. If you have been waking up tired, if you have been waking up feeling that you haven't had good quality sleep, okay, look at the appliances in your bedroom and see what you can do about taking them out. So another issue is that unless you live in a very rural and remote area, almost every bedroom in the modern world suffers from a lack of deep darkness in the bedroom. It's a fact that our bedrooms are not as dark as those of almost all our ancestors. Appliances, standby lights, little LED lights, street lighting, they all filter in and contribute to sleep disturbance. The brain doesn't register enough darkness to produce its regular nighttime dose of melatonin. And lack of melatonin has been linked to depression. So try to, again, turn off appliances. And yeah, look, here's just another reason to do so that you don't have standby lights glowing during the night. And use dark curtains to keep out street lighting. And if necessary, wear a sleep mask. If there's absolutely nothing that you can do to fix any of those problems, then at least try to go to bed in a state of peace, calm, and well-being, gratitude. You can transcend any of those environmental challenges. So pray or meditate or journal before going to bed. Focus on your goals and your plans for moving your life in the direction of your dreams, and spend a few minutes like visualizing yourself already in your new life, and thank the dwelling that you're in for protecting you from the elements and for keeping you safe while you're sleeping. Sleep problems are endemic to the Western world, and very few people have good feng shui in their bedroom at any level, whether it's at the earth level, the human level, or the heaven level. Do what you can to build your sanctuary so that you get as much nourishment during the night from all levels, from all directions, so that when you wake up in the morning, you're raring to go. Now, remember, the earth chi is what's in your environment that supports and nourishes you. And number 8 is the kitchen and dining area. And I'm including this because this is where the earth chi transitions into human chi. Okay, what you put into yourself and how you put it into yourself, and I'm talking nourishment, I'm talking food, has a lot to do with the quality of your human chi, of your strength, your determination, the strength of your aura. Now, we've all heard about Grandma's secret ingredient that she adds to make the meals extra yummy and extra nutritious. Secret ingredient, of course, being love. And it seems to be true that food that's prepared with a peaceful, loving, generous heart seems to be more nutritious than food that is just thrown together mindlessly. Bless the food. Reiki the food, even if it might be otherwise compromised, if it's not as organic as you desire it to be, even if it's fast food, even if it's microwaved, even if it's got some additives, unless you have health problems. Remember that you're imbuing this food with your intention and with your love can override the toxic effect of anything. Your body is smart. Remember that. It is designed to remove toxins. So trust it to do its job well. Trust your body to do the elimination of the toxins optimally, trust that it will use and utilize what it needs to, and simply let go of the rest. Now, by being grateful for your meal, you're putting your body into a relaxed and receptive state. When you're anxious or tense, you're in a fight or flight mode. And that's not a good state for your body to be in order for it to draw the goodness from the meal that you're having. So no matter what the circumstances, make meal times a time of mindfulness. Be fully present. Make a ritual of even the most mundane meal. If you can, put on some nice relaxing music and light a candle, dine by lamplight, put some flowers on your table. If you're eating with others, make it a relaxed and nourishing atmosphere. Make it companionable. Encourage people who are dining with you to feel good about themselves. Do what you can to make peace the prevailing vibe whenever you are sitting down to eat, either by yourself or with others. And when you're preparing meals, do it with an open, generous heart. Avoid the feeling of resentment of being trapped in the kitchen. Be like grandma and put love into the food. Put peace into the food. And when you clean up afterwards, again, be thankful. So in classic Feng Shui, there's a lot of energetic rules that apply in the kitchen area. I would say to you at this stage, with your strong personal chi, with your strong intention, your strong determination, that is overridable. Okay, so make sure to strengthen yourself with as much energetic nourishment as possible, and this applies particularly strongly to the food and the whole dining experience. So aim for peace, aim for gratitude, aim for joy and delight. I'll see you with the Earth Chi. One way to strengthen that is to make your home as welcoming as possible, from when people approach your house or your dwelling, to when they enter the dwelling, to when they relax and feel welcomed. Now imagine this. You're out with friends, you're having a good time. Then someone suggests moving the gathering over to your house. Now, if you're a woman, you're going to freak out a little bit. You're going to find some good excuses to say, oh, no, because in your mind's eye, you're quickly scanning your place to see what embarrassing or incriminating evidence your friends might accidentally come across. So you kind of hope for at least 30 minutes to have a quick, fast cleanup, even just to gather armfuls of stuff and dump it elsewhere, close the door on it. But if you're a guy, you'll say, sure, let's go. And when you get there, you'll just tell your friends to step over the mess and to remember to clean the glass before they drink out of it. Men don't seem to have that same identification with their home as women do. For women, their house is much more an extension of themselves. And any flaws that are perceived with a house are felt to be, internal flaws revealed. And they are to some extent, because our inner life is reflected in our outer life. Men must just have much more simple inner life than women, I suspect. For almost all of us women, our home represents us in evolution, in transition. It's filled with things that we can afford and not necessarily who we aspire to be. This is important. Your home is a result of who you used to be. Okay, it may not be who you are now, who you are becoming. Your home is filled with things that reflected how much you could afford back then, how you felt about yourself back then. Okay, so it may not be accurately reflecting who you are becoming. And I think that's one of the big reasons that women often feel a little bit shy about who sees their private interiors. And yes, your friends will make judgments just as much as you make judgments when you go to see other people's places. I heard a story once, I don't know how true this is, but in a European country, at twilight, people like to go for a walk after dinner, and It's certainly true for me, but if I can look inside a house, I love doing that. And I think that's one of the reasons why home magazines are so popular, because we love to see how other people live. But in this particular country, people leave their curtains open and the lights on so people can see what's inside their inside the room, inside the house, and particularly, show off their good housekeeping skills, their good design skills. So most of us, we close our blinds, we close our curtains. When it gets dark, we don't want people seeing the interiors of our house if we can avoid it. But in some cultures, it's actually, they're very proud to show off the interiors of their home. So getting back to pragmatic matters, if by circumstances that are beyond your immediate capacity to remedy, and you find yourself in a less than ideal position for the time being, remember these basic principles. Keep it clean, keep it uncluttered, and keep it mended. How you care for your home is how you care for yourself. It is intimately connected. And that goes for every other occupant who's in the house as well. So if you have cohabitants, whether it's partner, children, housemates, how they treat the environment that they're living in is also how they're treating themselves. So use that as a bit of place psychology tip. Now, the final way that I'm going to talk about how to strengthen the earth chi around you so that it nourishes you is to add beauty and to add quality wherever you can. Now, this is underrated. Beauty is food for the soul. This is really important. Beauty is not a luxury, but a necessity. A large part of how your environment influences you is how it uplifts you and engages your higher sensibilities. And think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yes, it's going to shelter you from the elements. Yes, it's a place to feel safe where you can nourish yourself with food and with rest. But then we get into the higher qualities, that of belonging, that of being creative, that of being purposeful. So beauty and having quality items are usually beautiful in and of themselves, even in a very understated way. It may not be splashy, sparkly, blingy, okay, but it will have its own integrity and inherent beauty, even in simplicity. So if you live in a grungy place, you will feel grungy. If you're a coach and you're living in your grandma's basement, okay, which is kind of, you have to put your desk and your bed around all the storage stuff there, okay, is not going to make for an environment that, where you can sell your 5-figure packages, for instance. Is not to say you can't begin on that journey. So yeah, start with where you're at, but think of continuous improvement. Okay, think of, okay, we're moving forward little bit by little bit by little bit. Okay, so one of the very simple ways that is accessible to almost everyone is to add flowers, okay, and plants. And look, it really doesn't have to be, orchids, roses. I mean, just go into an outside area. And look, even if it's a time of year where it's not blooming, like if it's not spring, I mean, greenery. Okay, greenery is good for the soul. Nature nourishes. Nature is a very powerful, all-round Feng Shui cure for almost everything. So try to bring in as much nature as you can. Put the flowers in a vase and then, or a pot if you've got the whole plant. Make sure to take care of it. When they start getting past a certain vitality, don't keep dead flowers, is what I'm saying. If you have put the plant, if it's a potted plant, in the wrong place and it's withering, okay, do what you can to resuscitate it. Don't keep struggling plants and flowers in your space. Once they lose their optimal, flush, if you like, they've expended their energy to enhance the place, and time to clear it out. That's part of the decluttering and keeping things clean. So you can put flowers in the kitchen, where you dine. You can put it around your computer. You can put it in the bedroom. at the entrance where people come into, where you come into your place and you say, I'm home, yay. You can even put some flowers and plants in the bathroom. Now, you could even just have a single flower with some greenery around it, or a small posy of wildflowers, a sprig of fragrant jasmine. Oh, I can't think of anything better than that. They all have energy. They all add their charm to uplift your environment. Another way that you can add beauty to your home is through artwork and through home decor items. Now, your artwork is incredibly potent in revealing your inner workings. Because think about it. Artwork you choose because it appeals to you. You do not generally compromise on artwork. Very few people will put up artwork that doesn't resonate with them. We've all had experiences where somebody is really proud of, the artwork they've selected, and we look at it and go, okay, it does nothing for us, so it's nothing that we would have selected. So whereas a lot of your other home decor items are chosen probably for more pragmatic reasons, like budget, okay, or space that you've got, artwork is selected from your soul. Now, sometimes your soul is working on a karmic lesson. So you might, for instance, like really dramatic art. I know for a while there was a real phase of posters featuring lighthouses being buffeted by stormy seas. Okay, you probably can imagine what I'm talking about. That isn't peaceful, relaxing artwork. That's not nourishing artwork. That probably reflects more, not necessarily the turmoil of the inner soul, but how you see yourself against the world. Okay, how you envision that your light, you being the lighthouse, is under attack from the forces around you. So it's almost like a Rorschach test, one of those psychological tests, where you are given some shapes and you interpret that according to where you're at that time. Now, there are some things to be very careful of. Now, with artwork, I also include photographs. Who have you got photos of around you? Are they of people that you still really love? Okay, a lot of people have photos of their parents, their mother, their father, but they may have mother issues, they may have father issues, okay, and so they kind of feel judged every time that they see that. So to help you become aware and to make good decisions about what you're displaying around your house in terms of art and home decor, I'm going to leave a handout for you to browse through, and I hope you'll find that very useful. Welcome back. In this section, we'll be looking at human chi elements. Human chi elements are those that you fill yourself up with, like food and information. It's also how you strengthen and purify your energies, and I'm talking mental, emotional, spiritually, and morally. It's also your constitution, your physical constitution. Okay. The first thing about human chi that I want to bring up is how you present yourself to the world. So it's about your clothes, your grooming, your accessorizing, how your confidence just shows to the world. I'm going to include a rather lengthy article that I wrote a while ago that kind of captures like the details, even things like, your fingernails and your haircuts. You know yourself that when you have a bad hair day, it is really hard to come from a strong place of potent human chi. And the same goes when, you're looking scruffy. They consider it an insult in France, for instance, to go out, to just duck down to the shops in your scruffies. They consider it an insult to the people who have to look at you. But also it makes it really hard for you yourself to come from a position of strength and inner power when you're not letting your beauty radiate, when you're not letting your beauty shine into the world. Because you want to radiate an aura of cheerfulness, confidence, optimism, to Send a strong signal to the world. It's easy to spot a person who's determined to be successful in life, even when it's obvious that they're not yet in a position to afford the very best items. So by radiating an aura of positivity and can-do and confidence and competence, they're sending signals, or you're sending signals to the more powerful people around you, those who are in positions to ally with you, to mentor you, to take you under their wing. And this does start with a little thing. So I apologize in advance if this particular section sounds a bit nitpicky, but they do add up. So while beauty might be subjective, attractiveness isn't. Everyone can be attractive. Attractiveness is magnetic. Think about that. It draws others to you. So the second factor of human chi is how you nourish yourself. And I am talking about food and what you put into your body to rebuild yourself, to rebuild your cells, your bones, your organs, and the vitality that you bring to this equation. Every cell in your body is reconstituted from what you have put into your digestive system for processing, for physical processing. Be very mindful of the quality of what you put in to your system, because it is directly connected to what you get out. What you put in, what you put out. As I say, garbage in, garbage out. I'm not going to be advocating a particular worldview on this. It's up to you whether you want to be vegetarian, vegan, or paleo or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about here. Whatever you choose, make it the very best quality. Okay, so I'm going to add another article for this particular video. So make sure to read through that and then make a decision that if you want a strong foundation, if you want to navigate strongly through your chi environment, okay, that is going to be influenced by heaven chi and earth chi, then you do need to really consider the foundation. Food, your physical self, your physical health, your well-being is ultimately the foundation, the platform from which your power emerges. Okay, so the third factor we're going to look at with the power of your human chi, it's your hungry ghosts. I like that title. It sounds really mysterious. But your hungry ghosts are really just about where you are vulnerable, the buttons that you have that can be pushed. Okay, the unfinished business, your Achilles heel. So where you are vulnerable. And I've said for a long time that where you hurt, you need to heal. It's your responsibility. And it's as simple as that. Okay, if you are vulnerable in certain areas, you need to do something about it. Okay, you are not going to stop people coming into your life who trigger you. You can't protect yourself against the world from being triggered unless you retreat and make your world really small. That is not a place of strong human chi. You are not coming from your power when you retreat because you are vulnerable. So the only option is for you to deal with it. Okay, so that way if people come into your life and they attempt to push your buttons, but if you have no buttons, what can they do? As a bit of an example, when I was a young woman, I attempted suicide a few times. I felt very vulnerable. I felt very stupid. I felt that I just couldn't figure out how to play a winning game of life. There were a lot of people who came into my life to push my buttons. There were a lot of circumstances that where I would feel quite stupid. And totally just not together. And so, I mean, people could talk about my beauty, they could talk about the lack of my artistic ability, my inability to sing. That didn't bother me. But if they insinuated that I was unintelligent or stupid, okay, I got all huffy and went out of my way to prove myself, I'll show them kind of response. Okay, so my intelligence was one of my hungry ghosts. It would come and consume me if I felt under threat in that area. I finally figured out that, life is a set of lessons, and that if I wanted to stop learning the same lesson again and again and again and again and again, then I had better roll my sleeves up and, learn what was being put in front of me so that at least I could move on to other lessons, which were hopefully more interesting and hopefully a little bit easier. So here are some of the common ways that people's hungry ghosts emerge particularly when they're really striving hard to be successful. Maybe you'll recognize some of these in your own games that you play and in your own self-image. So number one, you see yourself as a victim. When you see yourself as a victim, it's really hard to see yourself navigating towards your dream when you feel like the fortunes of life are just going to toss you here and there, that you don't have any control over your destination because you just never know when your boogeyman is going to resurface in your life, when you're going to be triggered. Okay, so that's one way that your hungry ghosts can appear in your life. Another way is seeing yourself as a loser. Okay, seeing that, you're just hopeless. You can't ever do anything right. This was for me tied into my issues. This seeing yourself as a loser can be really strong for people who have maybe never experienced a really winning situation in their life. And I am talking about like right back at school, when you won awards or you were the school captain, you excelled in a field that you were recognized for. So if you haven't got any of that to kind of begin to build a foundation on, okay, then it can be really easy to have that particular hungry ghost triggered in your aura, in your psyche, in your mindset. And this is also why you will often see that people who have had successes in other fields continue having successes in what they put their mind to, in their business activities, in their income, in their work with clients. So that is how that plays out. Okay, third hungry ghost is when you play the if only game. Okay, if only I wasn't handicapped in a particular way. If only I wasn't born into a struggling family. If only I was born in better circumstances. If only I went to better schools. If only I had more money. If only I had a better education. Okay, it's limitless, the if onlys. One of my favorite games that I used to play was If Only I Had Been Born a Man. Okay? Well, I wasn't. And I'm glad I wasn't. So number 4 on the Hungry Ghosts list is that you might feel excluded because you're not a member of a privileged group. Okay, you might feel like an outsider, or it might feel that, you're too special, you're too different, you're too evolved. Okay, so there can be that little bit of inherent snobbery in there as well. Okay, that other people don't get you, and that you haven't got the benefit of the networking connections. Okay, that it might be easy to see that other people benefit from, but here you are, you're struggling as an outsider, and it makes your journey just that little bit more challenging. So one example of being an outsider, I worked in real estate for some time. And I worked in an agency where many of my colleagues would smoke, and they would often congregate together and smoke together, have talks, have chats. I felt excluded because I didn't smoke, and I felt that they were giving each other tips and leads and not inside information, but advantageous information that they would bolster each other up in their success. You can guess I was not successful in my real estate career, and I blamed it because I wasn't part of this group. Totally incorrect on my part. But when you're in that situation, it's really hard to be objective. And the fifth hungry ghost, but by no means the last hungry ghost, is seeing yourself as undeserving. Okay, if you don't feel worthy of success, you're not going to attract it. The undeservingness, I have found, is extremely common because many of us have been trained in public school systems where we have learnt to obey authority, or we have learnt to give away our own power to those who know better. Now, in conclusion of this section of Hungry Ghosts, you cannot outperform your self-image. Okay, so if you see yourself disadvantaged in any way, deal with it. Take responsibility for it and resolve it. There are a multitude of techniques for doing that. I'm not going to put them all out for you. You probably know quite a few yourself. Okay, but roll your sleeves up, take responsibility for it, clear it. And now let's move on to the next one. Now, the fourth factor of a strong human chi is self-awareness. Now, self-awareness doesn't come as one revelation. It's an ongoing process, and you'll have blind spots that suddenly become revealed, and you'll think, how on earth did I miss that for that long? This will happen in your home as well, when you start seeing your environment as metaphors for your life. You know, you'll cast a analytical eye around your place, and you'll have an insight. Okay, that dark corner feels really oppressive, and yeah, there's part of my energy that feels really oppressive internally. And then you'll deal with it, but you won't see something else that is waiting to be revealed. Okay, that might be in a few months' time that you'll suddenly become aware of it, and you'll think, how on earth did I miss that? I operate on the understanding that everything is revealed in the perfect time. Okay, never, never, never beat yourself up for something that should have been different in the past. Okay, it's a no-win game for a start. Okay, but I also feel that everything is exquisitely in order. Human beings are self-correcting. So begin by looking at your past and understanding how you came to be designed the way that you are now. Be mindful, be appreciative of all those factors that pushed and guided you and maybe pulled you to bring out certain strengths, to hold certain attitudes. This is a good time to let you know that for the first 18 years of your life, you are not in control of your decision making. Basically, on your 18th birthday, it's like the steering wheel of your life gets handed over to you, and people say to you, okay, well, we've done our bit. Now you go out into life and you go for it. If you've learnt to drive, you know that you really only start to get the hang of being a good driver once you've scared yourself silly a few times, once you've made a few mistakes, hopefully without hurting yourself or anyone else in the meantime. But after a while, you begin to get the hang of it, and you can then consciously improve. And you can do like defensive driving and the more advanced techniques. So if you're a young person who's watching this course, don't be too hard on yourself. You know, if you're still finding your feet, it can take a whole lifetime. Now, in your awareness, in your self-awareness, be very observant for the story that you have built yourself into. Okay, now much of this story has been put into place by the characters around you, by the people who raised you, by the people who educated you. Okay, but you do have the power to choose your own story. So the self-awareness is about looking at the discrepancy of the story you want to live and the story you have been trained to live. Now, the fifth factor of a strong human chi is your education. This is your willingness to learn about the unknown, how willing you are to step forward into the field of knowledge beyond what you can see and experience with your five senses. A lot of people are damaged by their early educational experiences, but the world is full of wonder, and if you resist expanding your knowledge base because of your woundedness from your past, you are making your world smaller. Now, there's three factors to a good, solid education. One involves your left brain, which is all the facts and figures and knowledge and knowing how to manipulate the external world in order to categorize it, organize it, strategize it, analyze it. Okay, there is also your right brain, which looks at relationships and patterns. It's the creative, expansive part of your information system and learning system that looks or feels or experiences beyond what's there in front of you with the facts and figures. Now, people often divide themselves into either left brain thinkers or right brain thinkers. I feel that's missing the point. We should be integrated thinkers. They should feed each other. What we observe and what we feel that observation might mean in relationship to a bigger issue or pattern, they should inform each other. You might, for instance, be a very imaginative thinker, say, for instance, in the psychic realm. If you're an integrated thinker, you might say, well, look, what is this about? Surely there are patterns there that can be understood, that can be built on, that can be integrated and enrich what we already know. So music, for instance, to actually learn music, to learn to play and to learn to read music is a very left brain activity. Okay, there's a lot of repetition, there is a lot of brain hurt, okay, until you really get familiar with the material, until you basically kind of build up a body knowing. But once you are skilled and strong in music, then you can use that as a foundation for your creativity. Improv. In our Western world, we reward classical musicians that faithfully reproduce what the original composer had put down on paper. In the East, in China, they reward or they put on a pedestal those musicians that can take that foundation work and embellish it through their own creativity. There are different ways of looking at it. Now, let's look at the reverse scenario. Somebody might be born with immense innate musical talent. They haven't got a clue on how to read music. They don't know how to play instruments. They're only creating music with their voice. By not being able to read music, by not being able to play an instrument, they might be a little bit limited in what they can produce and maybe what they can teach, what they can pass on as a legacy. So by then taking the time to develop the mechanics or understand the mechanics of the structure of music and how it is categorized and organized, okay, that then can feed and synergize with their innate talent. With your education, coming back to the core element here, educate your mind, educate your heart, educate your talents, follow your curiosity, and give each aspect of yourself a good, solid grounding in strength and in power. And maybe take the time to read some classic pieces, those works that a lot of other thinkers seem to quote from all the time. Go back and read some of the philosophers and the early scientists and the writers of the Enlightenment. Okay, so go back, study ideas, study philosophies, study the different ways to observe life, approach life, interact with life. That's never a wasted venture. And then integrate. So remember, left brain education, right brain education, whole brain education. Educate your mind, your soul, your heart, and your body. All right. Number 6 on how to strengthen your human chi is spiritual development. How to become peaceful with the world that you're in, but also in the world beyond. And one of the ways that a lot of people attend to their spiritual development is through meditation. And I want to take a moment to share with you the reality of meditation. Meditation is not about silencing your mind. Meditation is about strengthening your right brain. It's as easy as that. Your left brain is the one that makes all the lists, that reminds you what to do. It's about time and space. The left brain is about time and space and numbers, okay, which is how time moves through space. What you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve with meditation is moving the left brain aside so the right brain can be heard. Your right brain, well, it doesn't think in words, so it won't compete with the left brain to communicate with you. So your right brain is the awareness that is beyond time and space. Okay, this is where your creativity springs from. This is where your inspiration, where your dreams come from. So you want that voice to be heard. You don't want it to be still and quiet. You are just creating space inside your head for your inner wisdom or higher wisdom, however you want to conceptualize it, to emerge and to be made real. So the thing is, as your right brain communication becomes stronger within you, it can then begin to hold kind of like equal space in your head, equal space in your awareness, equal space in your consciousness, so that the left brain isn't always dominating with its priorities. Under the umbrella of the spiritual development, a lot of that will be about your relationship with your own right brain's connection to beyond time and space. I'm trying to leave the definition as open as possible, because in the spiritual development arena, there are games that are being played, and one of the games is that I've got the truth And if you want to learn the truth, you better listen to me. That's not a game that I support or encourage others to play. You are your own authority. And when you recognize that, when you claim your own authority, then you are not a follower. And one aspect of having strong human chi is that deep inner self-assurance that you know where you fit in life, that you know your purpose of your life, that you know where you fit into the bigger scheme of life. So meditate, sure, don't aim for quietness, aim for hearing your truth. Now, meditation, just before I leave this topic, meditation doesn't need to be done in stillness either. It can be done through movement, through rhythmic repetition, like, for instance, sitting in a rocking chair. It can be done through singing. It can be done through being in nature. It can be done whenever you're relaxing and just zoning out. Okay, so don't buy into the mystique of like Zen type meditation as being the only way of pursuing any spiritual development. I'll see you. Okay, let's talk about the 7th point on how to have a strong human chi. What are you putting up with? What ongoing aggravations are there in your life? I call these tolerations. And tolerations are things that you're not dealing with, things that can be fixed, but you don't speak up about it, or it's too hard, or it is too complicated, or endless reasons. Tolerations often keep you small. They cramp your world. You're not expressing your power to create the life that you want. So I'm going to give you an exercise to do on this particular topic. Go grab a sheet of paper and go into each room of your house. And as you enter each room, what really, really annoys you or niggles at you every time you look at it. Okay, so there might be a mat that you keep tripping on. Your mattress might give you backaches. The pots and pans are a mess where you store them in the kitchen. Your washing machine leaks. And you'll be surprised at what has remained invisible for so long. It's just really subliminal. And when you do this exercise on a regular basis, you'll catch things that you've missed before, or something will suddenly come into your awareness that seems so obvious that you can't understand why you haven't seen it before. And it simply means that your consciousness now is ready to move beyond that limitation that that toleration represents. Okay, so yes, go through your house, make a note of when you look around that room, annoys you, and make plans to deal with it. Some things are easily fixed, some things may be complicated, and that which can't be fixed, if it's really totally beyond your capacity or your responsibility to fix, if it really can't be changed, learn to live with it so that you make peace with it, because tolerations pull at your energy. It brings you down without you being aware of it. So do this exercise from time to time, particularly if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling unsupported in life. Attacking tolerations or dealing with tolerations, it's a form of uncluttering. It's uncluttering the pulls on your energy. So the 8th factor in developing a really strong human chi is by taking responsibility for your money. While many of us believe that money isn't really that important, it is a measure that we use as a yardstick for success and self-image. And this is particularly strong in women who are in business in some kind of life purpose context. You're wanting to leave a legacy in the world. You will probably be either a teacher, a healer, a coach, an artist. And many of us feel that money isn't the main driver for us. We particularly are vulnerable to this aspect because money is a correlation to our self-confidence in what we are doing in the world. It's a validation. So the world that I move in is filled with passionate women who are going beyond like the masculine power paradigm to live outside the mainstream and to go for their passions, to fulfill their purpose. But many of these women struggle financially. And this, when people look at this phenomena, they can't understand why these driven women, many struggle with money. So there was a yoga teacher and an author called Christopher Nelson, who was also mystified. And he suggested that many of such entrepreneurs chose to live by inner values rather than external values, and that they may have thrown out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. And he believes that it is imperative that more inner value and spiritually driven entrepreneurs actually succeed in their businesses rather than struggling because they feel guilty or soiled somehow if they're taking money for their services. Who takes struggling businesses seriously? If you want to have clout in the world, if you want to have influence in the world, you can't do it as a struggling business. Even if you have lofty goals of changing the world, okay, you need that validation, that energetic affirmation of money that supports you in that strength. Money is a word we love to hate, and we hate to love it. That sounds really cliched. We associate it with all the negative qualities of our consumer society, but we should also be looking on money as a metaphor of life. And imagine this, women's spirituality has been suppressed and subverted for thousands of years. Imagine if the same dynamic was there for money as well. The energy of money has been suppressed and subverted for thousands of years, because like anything else, it also has an enlightened side and a shadow side. So be willing to explore your own relationship with money in a way that you and others actually thrive. Learn to see money in its more pure, neutral, metaphysical state. Money is moving from the physical into the non-physical all the time. It is transitioning from paper and metal in your wallet to electronic signals stored on computers, embedded in microchips that you carry around, and even now on your smartphone. When you see something that you know is meant for you, but you don't currently have the wherewithal to buy it or acquire it, ask yourself, how could you acquire it? Ask yourself, how can I get this? Rather than automatically saying to yourself, oh, I can't afford it. So let such challenges stretch your resourcefulness. It's like your yoga teacher who will push you beyond your perceived limitations. This holds true in every area of your life, not just physically, but also metaphysically and also with money. Now, on the shadow side of money, be aware that debt is a manipulative and deliberate and very powerful way to keep you trapped and feeling small. This is how the few people in the world control the masses in the world, the many people in the world. It's much more effective than chains and padlocks. Debt keeps entire populations from being free to follow their own dreams. People who have lots of debt tend to stay in jobs and careers that they dislike because they feel a responsibility to their debt. So yes, be careful when you come across financial institutions that are very generous with their lending policies and offering you easy access, easy ways to go into debt. So don't put money as something you don't think about. I would really recommend the reverse. Get yourself a very strong financial education. So whether you're aiming to be financially secure, whatever that means for you, or comfortable, whatever that means for you, or rich, whatever that means for you, each of those are going to require that you take responsibility for getting there. And one of the books that I really recommend is The Barefoot Investor. Take that as how it's given, very lightly. Explore for yourself whether that is something that can be of use to you. Now, another factor in creating strong human chi is being very careful with what information, what external information, what authoritative or apparently authoritative information you allow to influence your beliefs and your attitudes and your perceptions. You may already be aware that many awakening and conscious people are choosing not to watch television or listen to the radio and they're very careful with the news that they absorb. So one easy way to reclaim your happiness is simply to disconnect from the fear and drama show perpetuated by many media corporations. Well, there's not that many anymore. There's only about 2 or 3 that control all the television, the newspapers, the radio, and all the magazines. Now, scientists do believe that our brains are hardwired to be receptive to bad news because that's a survival mechanism. But how much bad news do we actually really need to hear? So it helps in situations like this to come back to a simpler model. If you say a generation can be calculated to be at about 25 years, then 100 generations ago would have been about 2,500 years ago, and 1,000 generations would be about 25,000 years ago. Now, historians believe that our earliest societies emerged about 12,000 years ago, which is about less than 500 generations. So in evolutionary terms, 500 generations isn't a long time for a complicated system like the human brain and human emotions to evolve, especially when for over 496 of those generations, life was pretty much consistent. So our survival mechanisms of fight or flight are today pretty similar to how they were for our ancestors of about 500 generations ago. So the bad news that was important for them to hear would have been very, very local indeed. You know, which ruler, local ruler or over-the-hill ruler has been usurped, who's now made alliances and allegiances, were there any invasions that literally on the horizon, pests, predators, natural regional disasters, diseases. The good news, on the other hand, was not really a matter for survival, which is why our ears tend to prick up more when we get wind of a natural disaster or who's had a falling out with whom. Because literally you are hardwired to scan your environment for bad news. But these days, though, the boundary of our news kind of covers the whole planet, and that by and large has no impact on us day to day. Research just out shows that people who compulsively watch the news, who look for dramatic events, have 4 times the stress levels of those who are actually there on the ground. Okay, so the observers, particularly the ones that are diving back into it again and again, they're making it much worse for themselves than if they were actually there. So our imagination can easily exaggerate the real dangers. So be very careful, be very mindful of what ideas you let into your mind. Recognize that we live in a fear-based society. Our commerce needs people to be fearful about the future and the present. It triggers their fears about what they look like, their appearance. It's all about fear. And that's what advertising is all about. So there are a lot of doom and gloom messages out there, but how realistic are they? Many times it is an opinion, an educated opinion, but an opinion nonetheless. And you will always find somebody who has an alternative educated opinion. So make sure that you at least explore the critiques of those opinions. Don't be afraid of being sucked into any conspiracy theory. Realize that every event has multiple stories around it, and people have agendas to push a particular story. Everybody has agendas. It's a natural bias, okay, that we all have. So before locking a belief or an attitude or an opinion into your own mind, make sure you explore the full spectrum of perspectives. So make it a point to, yes, educate yourself, but also learn about the solution finders to these problems. Learn about the good news that is on the horizon. And if there's something really important that you urgently need to be aware of, your network, your social network will very quickly get that information to you. So if there's a massive weather event on the horizon, trust that you'll know about it in plenty of time. There'll be enough people in your life concerned about you who will want you to know, who will alert you to anything. So in terms of our human chi, the strength of our human chi, things like negativity, stress, fear, outrage, pessimism, all suck it dry. And these are all actively encouraged by the main sources of news and information into our society. So be very careful of what you may carelessly be letting into your life that actually creates a lot of these energy leakages of your human chi. The next factor in developing a strong human chi is how you deal with other people who you surround yourself with in your life. So when I would do Feng Shui consultations, many of my clients asked me, like half jokingly, whether they could get rid of their life partner when it came to reorganizing their home and life for success. Because unsupportive partners seem to be by far the most complained about source of frustration. So if this is you, take heart. You're not alone in this, not by a long shot. Now, no one in your life knows how to push your buttons better than those who are closest to you. So your partner, your lover, your parents, your siblings, your best friends. On the surface, they can appear anywhere on the scale of doubting your abilities, all the way to downright ridiculing your attempts to make a better life for yourself. However, this is one of those life areas where it really helps to be looking at the larger picture in order to tease out the dynamics of what is really happening and how to go from there. So looking at their larger picture helps you see their lack of support from quite a different perspective. Now first, if you acknowledge that we're all connected anyway, then you can see their lack of support simply that it's reflecting what's in your own mind and in your own heart. Sometimes it feels safer for us to externalize our fears and blame others for not believing in us. It's safer and easier to say that, oh, he doesn't believe in me, than it is for us to say, I don't believe in me. Now, secondly, if you accept that we're here in this cosmic playground to learn our lessons, and that others are our teachers, particularly those who we love, then they are simply trying to get us to learn that where we hurt, we need to heal. So when you find yourself upset by someone who has said or done something, ask yourself, why exactly are you feeling vulnerable? And what do you need to do about it? So what can you do about it? Okay, well, simply recognize that other people can't upset you if you don't have a weakness in that area that they're targeting. So if someone refers to your procrastination or your lack of practical business skills, if you were confident in your own ability to get the job done in a timely way, then these comments, they would just slide off your mind. They wouldn't be able to get hold. They wouldn't be able to get under your skin. But if you shared their doubt in your own abilities, then their comments can take seed and grow. A clue is that the stronger you react to other people's comments, the stronger your own inner agreement is with them. So on a more prosaic level, on a pragmatic level, you can choose from the following options. 1. Appreciate that a person's lack of support comes from their own fears and insecurities, so that your expansion might be triggering their vulnerabilities. So in this instance, you don't need to take their attacks personally. Don't let it get under your skin. Number 2, recognize that their words have no power to affect you if you don't allow them to. Okay, so by creating a bit of a buffer in your mind between what they're saying and how it's affecting you, so you would be hearing them, but you would be asking perhaps what's their agenda for saying this, what's their motivation. Okay, it might help you to put that into perspective. It's as Brené Brown in one of her books was saying about her vulnerability, that when she gets attacked by others, she asks whether they're in the same situation, doing the same work, like fighting the same kind of battles that she is, or are they sitting on in the grandstand, just watching and giving their 2 cents worth. Yes, number 2, recognize that other people's words have no power to affect you if you don't allow them to. Okay, so number 3, advise them that their support is welcome, but not necessary. While it would be nice to have your partner's support behind you, You can be determined to be successful anyway. You can be determined to be successful despite their lack of support. So when they see that they can't control you, they can't limit you by their assessments, by their critiques, when they see that you're not succumbing to them and being defeated by them, they may very well just stop, because that game is just no more fun. So number 4, ensure that you do get positive support somewhere in your life, either through a mentor or a coach or even an online forum of like-minded people. If worse comes to worse and you have no access to face-to-face interaction with positive, supportive people, keep a journal. Support yourself in writing. Praise yourself often. Give yourself lots of pats on the back. It's your self-talk that I'm referring to. So whether you do the self-talk like in writing, which is just a little bit more of a process of making it real, or whether you get yourself in the habit of being more mindful about how you talk to yourself in your thoughts, or when you are facing challenges, or when you are facing criticism. Okay, so self-talk is really important. If other people aren't on your side, you, at the very least, need to be on your side. And now let's talk about heaven chi. Now you might think that heaven chi is really out of your control, but it's not. And that's what we'll be discussing in the next few lectures. I'll see you there. Now the first element of heaven chi that influences your life is your karma. Now your life up till now has been determined by thousands upon thousands of decisions that you've made in the past. Some of those you may regret, some you may feel quite pleased about. But I guarantee that most of those decisions were made impulsively, with little thought to any long-term consequences. And your future will be the outcome of the seeds that you're planting today. So hopefully you won't be quite as impulsive as you used to be. Are these many little actions karma? Not necessarily. I prefer to call those little actions life. Now, I think karma isn't quite as mechanical as people might expect. I think the spiritual laws work quite differently than physical laws. Most people are concerned with bad karma and with suffering. So say that you have moved into a house with the worst feng shui that you could ever imagine. Could this be maybe a karmic consequence of a previous wrong that you did to somebody else? No, perhaps, but it's really impossible to know for sure. Because you could also be coming into this place to learn certain lessons, to retrieve certain inner strengths. But getting back to karma, the best remedy for bad karma is just sincere regret for past wrong actions and putting in effort to not repeat those or any other wrong actions in future. Being aware of karma puts you on notice to strive for a highly ethical and moral life in absolutely every sphere of your life. The goal of karma is basically to purge the desire to do wrong. If you're no longer capable of doing wrong, like lying or being dishonest, then the karma is settled. But if you still entertain ideas of trying to get away with things, then the karmic game still keeps on going, because it would really only be a matter of time before you move those kind of thoughts into action. One of the strongest causes of bad karma is doing things even though you know they are the wrong things to do. There's a big difference between doing something that's intentionally bad or something that's accidentally bad. Karma grows from the seed that is planted in your soul, from the committing of your actions. So if you're aware of what you're doing and you still do it anyway, you plant a stronger karmic seed than if you're not aware that what you did was bad or wrong. Good karma works the same way. When you do consciously good things, you plant good karmic seeds in your soul than if you do something accidentally good for someone else. Karma is created by what you think, what you do, and what you say. So that's great motivation for developing moral, mental, and emotional hygiene. So if you're in a dwelling with bad feng shui, just forgive yourself for all your past karmic misdeeds and make a commitment to learn from them. Please don't beat yourself up and say, oh, this is my bad karma, this is my punishment. That's not a useful game. Okay, you can get on with anyone you're determined to get on with. You can thrive in any place you are determined to thrive. So karmic consequences are always related to their cause. So if you've been betrayed by somebody, it may be that you have taken joy and delight in someone else's misery or comeuppance. Be careful of even making such judgments like they deserved it. Or if people never seem to cooperate with you, take care that you don't mislead others or be ambiguous in what you're offering. If people are unreliable, ask yourself if you are consistently dependable in every area of your life. If you expect loyalty, are you loyal? If you expect obedient children, were you obedient to your parents? Or are you obedient to your, inverted commas, elders now? If you expect to be treated well, do you always treat others well? If you want the good things in life, do you offer your best to others? You get my point. So another aspect about karma is cleaning up any messes in your life. Karma is also unfinished business. This is what keeps the game going. Who are you seething at? Who are you determined to get even with, no matter what? Who are you never, ever, ever going to let go of because you think that you love them so much? So it doesn't always have to be the bad stuff, but also the so-called good stuff. What still bothers you after all this time? What unfinished business do you have with anyone? What have you avoided doing or saying that, if done or said, would help you sleep better at night? Now, I don't know who it was that wrote the most painful issues can all be solved with a 10-minute difficult conversation. But it's true, isn't it? How much precious time have we wasted avoiding those awkward 10 minutes? Also, consider the following scenarios. If you feel that you have money karma, bad money karma, ask yourself honestly, have you been utterly scrupulous in your tax affairs, or have you fudged a teeny bit, or maybe even a big bit? Have you ever accepted the wrong change when you received more than you should have from a cashier? Is there anyone you still owe money to, but you hope they've forgotten about it? And I assure you they haven't. Or is there somebody who still owes you money and it continues to irritate you that you still haven't been paid back? Or what about the area of relationships? Have you caused any emotional suffering to your partner simply because you could? Did it feel good to do that? And what emotionally manipulative games do you play with your partner or your children? And what promises have you reneged on? Okay, these are all lingering loose ends that weave into karma. And regarding your honesty, have any lies you told kind of gotten out of hand? Is there anyone who you've taken advantage of in any capacity that caused them suffering? Has any act of dishonesty on your part caused you unfair gain, even when the other party was a corporation or the government? Okay, there is no boundary between you and others. So what you do to others, you're doing to yourself. So to wind up this section, what are some of the remedies? Well, some of the most obvious ones would be to forgive yourself for past actions and commit to not repeating them. Consider acts of atonements, whether anonymously or not. You could also write a letter asking for forgiveness from the other person or party. You can send it, or you can burn it. It's just the clearing of it from your internal state. You could also talk to the other person involved face to face. Okay, so the second aspect of Heaven Chi is the life lessons that your soul has planned for you in this life. Now, I don't find it really useful to live your life in a permanent state of regret or penance, but to just appreciate that there might simply be some lessons to learn. I had a rocky start to my young adulthood, And at some point, fairly early on, I came to the realization that this world was a classroom and that there's no way to cheat your way out of it. If I was successful in leaving early, I figured I would just be sent straight back to similar circumstances as the ones that I'd been trying to avoid. It was when I fully appreciated this that I decided that I had just better roll up my sleeves and learn each lesson as well as I could, and at least move through them rather than stubbornly resisting the same ones my whole life. And I think one of the major lessons that we are here to learn is that we are fully responsible for our lives that we create for ourselves and the energy that we put into the world. When we can get to that point, that is when our higher purpose can actually be revealed. But to get to that point, to get to that understanding, actually takes a lot of work. We have to realize that we're units of consciousness, the same as every other unit of consciousness on this planet. There really is no one in charge of us. There really is no one superior to us. There is no one to blame for what's happening to us. Now, you might find yourself in hard circumstances. You might have had some pretty tough lessons. But if you consider those tough lessons as just superior classrooms, superior lessons, you won't get tested unless your higher wisdom believes that you've got the wherewithal to come out. Let me give you an analogy. Let me give you a little story. Imagine that your soul has plans for you in this particular life to learn courage. Like not just ordinary courage, but like real heroic courage. And soul plans that you are in a plane crash, but that you are a survivor of that plane crash and that it's through your actions that you save many lives. If it wasn't for your actions, then those lives would be lost. Now, if your human self realized this plan, do you think you would ever get out of bed in the morning? And it's not a kind of lesson that could be learned through any gentle way. We don't know what we are made of, what our truly glorious aspects of humanity are until they are pushed to the very limit. And when we undergo situations like that, it's almost like an initiation into a greater level of personal power. Initiations were common in many cultures, and they did absolutely come with elements of danger. There was a real risk that you would not survive, but it's something that can't be avoided. Life won't let you. And those are the life lessons. How to best cope. The Feng Shui of your home may highlight certain life lessons. Maybe they're relationship challenges, maybe they're financial challenges. It's no use blaming the Feng Shui of the house for those challenges. There is still a lot you can do right now in that challenging circumstance to course correct your life, to overcome the stresses that the Feng Shui of the house may be placing on your life. So maybe you even moved into this home with the bad Feng Shui as a kind of soul agreement. So remember, you are more powerful than your circumstances. When you realize that, that is a pivot point of your life when you truly begin to step into the next level of personal power. It won't happen instantly. It's rather like changing the course of an ocean liner that's going ahead at full steam. Let's see. The third heaven chi element is destiny and fate. As I mentioned, once you understand that your life is your responsibility and you begin to step up to that, then your higher purpose, your higher mission can kick in. But destiny doesn't necessarily mean higher mission, although your higher mission can certainly be your destiny. The word destiny is related to the word destination. I used to think that destiny was pretty well sorted out, that if I was meant to be famous, well, then I just would be, no matter what I did or didn't do. And that was pretty naive. But unfortunately for me, all my various astrology charts are kind of rather lackluster. There is no unexpected life-turning events waiting on the horizon for me. What a bugger. Then I realized that destiny is simply a trajectory of your current style of life. If you're going to keep doing what you're doing and thinking the way that you're thinking, it's pretty easy to kind of project forward to where you may end up. And this was confirmed for me when I used to read tarot cards for a living. The cards would basically reveal where the client's life was headed, with the way that they were living their life, with the attitudes they had, the habits or priorities they had. So I used my tarot readings as an opportunity to provide some spiritual counseling so that they could arrive at a more desirable outcome. Is it your destiny to live in a house with bad feng shui? Maybe your karma or life lessons have brought you to this place until certain decisions can be made, in which case this building with bad feng shui would be a good thing, wouldn't it? What else would it have taken for you to make those life choices? You always have free will. You always have choice. And you have the free will to deny that you have any choice. So what's the difference between destiny and fate? One of the most useful ways of differentiating them has been with a little saying that destiny is your weight and fate is your height. So you can't control how tall you are. That is clearly out of your control, so that would be fate. But destiny, linked to the word destination, with your weight, that is clearly under your control. You can arrive either knowingly or unknowingly, either consciously or unconsciously, at a certain weight that helps you to learn particular life lessons. Now, it's true that some feng shui schools have a fame section of being famous. They also have wealth sections, love sections, career sections. So is that fate or destiny? I mentioned earlier with my own astrology chart being rather average, really. If you are in a house with a strong fame section, for instance, if you just sit on your couch and do nothing, it's very unlikely that you would reap the benefits of that opportunity. So feng shui of a house with regards to like the areas that we consider successful in life, like money, love, and fame, they're like doorways, but you still have to go through them with your own actions. If it's fate, if it's beyond your control, you may find yourself suddenly in the spotlight. You may find yourself suddenly in the presence of a tremendous amount of money. You might find yourself in the presence of the love of your life. But if you haven't got the grounding, if you haven't got the preparation, that's not going to stay. It might just be a brief introduction, but because there's nothing to anchor you into that new level, it won't really guarantee that your life will change in any positive way. There's a saying that kind of captures the great essence of both destiny and karma. Live every day as if it would be your last, but do your work as if it would last 1,000 years. So the fourth element of heaven chi is what I've called this too shall pass. There will be times where the going gets tough, and you can take comfort in knowing that nothing lasts forever. Even bad feng shui goes through cycles, although it has to be said that some cycles can last up to 20 years or more. But really bad pain points usually only last for a matter of days or a few weeks. So when you're in the middle of crunch times and there's an abundance of unpleasant circumstances that you suspect may have been triggered by the feng shui of your home, go gently and compassionately during these times. Avoid getting emotional, so don't drink too much or overindulge in feeling sorry for yourself. The calmer your personal center is, the more calmly you will ride out the feng shui storm. So some things to keep in mind. It's a good time to strengthen your spiritual and meditation practices. It's also a really good time to keep your home clean and loved, and to fill yourself and your family with the very best nourishment that you can. Practice deep gratitude for the blessings of your life. Try not to react automatically to situations. Take some time to consider what moral or ethical responses might be being called forward, and focus on finding what's right in the world and take pleasure in those. And finally, laugh a lot and love strongly, and you'll find that the rhythms of your life won't reach as deeply into stress and anxiety, but will actually lift your whole vibration up so that the worst isn't all that bad. The final element of Heaven Chi is the law of attraction, or the law of creation. Now, people live in a world filled with metaphysical rules that are just as certain and true as physical rules like the law of gravity. These rules are the energetic matrix of creation, and they're certainly not random or chaotic. As scientists go more and more deeply into the disciplines like biology, astronomy, atomic physics, and so on, they're continually astounded by the genius of design that they come across. This universe isn't just slapped together willy-nilly. It's an intricate design of subtle and delicate checks and balances. Now, if you can accept that Wi-Fi signals can travel across the landscape from towers to your devices and even go through the walls of your building, how much more of a stretch is it to realize that your thoughts, which are also measurable bioelectric waves, can have an influence on this energetic matrix of creation? This is true, whether you realize it or not. Most people simply don't understand how they could have attracted an unwelcome situation into their life, but they're unknowingly playing with some very powerful forces of creation. You don't have to know how electricity works and where it comes from for it to be effective in your life. All you have to know is how to turn a switch on and off. Now, here's a big hint. How you explain a situation is the same mindset that created that situation. The fastest way for you to find out what you're subconsciously sending out into creation is when things go wrong. Stay alert to catch your thoughts in such situations. Now, many of us have areas in our life that we are blessed in. So some of us may be very good in the area of love, or in academic abilities, or in making money. But maybe we're not so good in other areas. And it's when you try to become competent in another area of your life beside your first one, you also encounter a lot of your misguided creative principles. We can link this back to something very simple, very easy, and it's the way that you talk to yourself. Self-talk. Your self-talk feeds the matrix of the creation of your own life. If you expect things to be hard, they will be hard. If you allow things to be easy, they most likely will be easy. And it's not just those occasional thoughts that you have, but the habits of your thinking. The habits of your thoughts travel down well-worn neural pathways in your brain. People gravitate to what is familiar to them. People gravitate to what they know, what is comfortable for them, what they are settled in. It takes a lot of effort to leverage that into something else, into a different pathway, into a different habit of thinking. Now, for you to ally with your home when you want to change your patterns of thinking, rearrange your home, there's a solid principle in Feng Shui that says if you want to change how you think, how you behave, how you respond, change 21 things in your home. So that could be putting your toothbrush in a different place. It would be maybe changing the furniture in your living room. It may be reorganizing your files. It could be any number of things. But what you're trying to create is a disruption to the habitual thinking. It's your thinking patterns that have created the life that you have now. You have probably unwittingly, unconsciously woven the creative matrix that has brought you to your current circumstances. And as we covered in our earlier lecture, your trajectory is quite predictable if you're going to keep doing the same things. So ally with your home and get it to help you to move yourself to where you want to be. All right, remember, you are moving through oceans of energies all the time and at many levels. A useful analogy to keep in mind is that of navigating a boat across the ocean. For instance, how the Polynesian people might have gotten from island to island. So to become a supremely skillful ocean navigator, they have to learn to be acutely aware of the ocean currents and the weather currents, and also to be aware of their own strengths and weaknesses and take all of those into account simultaneously. Now, while these navigators can't change the ocean currents or the weather, they can observe them and understand them so that they can make the best judgments on how to navigate them under any conditions. Just like how you can navigate life under any conditions for you to achieve your intended outcome with the knowledge and the equipment that you have at hand. And having these skills prepares you to be successful in any environment, no matter what the Feng Shui is. And this is how you can skillfully and successfully navigate your life in any given environment, like the one that you live in now and any that you will live in the future. By following the suggestions in this course, you will be effectively eliminating up to 80% of immediate earth and heaven chi factors that can slow you down or even stop you in your journey towards your dreams. By strengthening your own human chi, you increase your intuitive capacity to use your own judgment on how best to navigate the other 20%. Because you need to remember that people succeed all the time without the help of Feng Shui, just by believing in themselves. Now, it's fair to say that this course has not covered every single possibility within each of these three energies, but I've given you some of the common ones that people tend to struggle with. Your next step is to go through your own place where you live and simply take notes on what you see around you that annoys you and what you would need to do to fix it. So make a plan to deal with it. Some actions can be immediate, or they might take some further planning, and some will be out of your control altogether to do anything about. In which case, your best option might be to look at why this factor is annoying you, to look for the underlying reason rather than the obvious surface factor. Because it's true that we're often not annoyed by what we think we're annoyed about, but because that element is triggering an area where we feel vulnerable and possibly not in control of our lives. I'm aware that some of the topics are not as comprehensive as they could have been, but I did that so the course wouldn't be too long. The longer a course is, the less likely people are to finish them. So I wanted to make sure you got here to the end. So well done for that.